It's time for another best of 5 series in StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a professional match between two Zerg players. Spawning in game number 1 here on Sequencer LE, playing with the blue drones, we have none other than Elazer. And his opponent, spawning in a cross position and playing in red, also with the drones of course, we have none other than Serral. Now if there is one thing you should take away from this video, it is that you need to keep your eyes out on Serral. This guy right here is an absolute force to be reckoned with. So far in 2017, he has been on an absolute tear. I mean, I can't really describe it any better than that. Pretty much all of the professional players in the world have been giving this guy a ton of respect. And I'll be honest, I hadn't really heard about him until early 2017. And really, after watching him play over the last couple of months, he's just been getting better and better and better. As of me making this video right now, he's the rank 1 non-Korean player and the rank 3 in the world. Now, of course, that is a statistics taken from Aligulac, which is, you know, like I said, a statistics website, so it is always to be taken with a grain of salt, but it does indicate that this guy is an absolute menace right now. He is very, very good. The funny thing is that, like I said, in StarCraft 2 usually, right, whenever the game is, or really like in esports in general, whenever a game is a couple of years old, it becomes more and more difficult for newcomers to get into it, right? But Serral has been on an absolute tear. Like I said, he is the force to watch out for right now, and I hope that he makes it big. Of course, one thing that he does lack, and that is, you know, just a matter of time, I suppose, is experience. I mean, in a lot of the cases, players will be great on the ladder, and actually I've seen Serral have the highest MMR out of any player ever. I've seen him go all the way up to 7.3k MMR on rank number 1 in Grandmaster League, you know, just recently. But of course, offline tournaments and events and whatnot are a little bit differently. But regardless, let's jump into it. Now, of course, by the way, Elazer, most definitely not a bad player either. I just checked it. He is on Aligulac once again. He's the rank 4 non-Korean in the world and the rank 14 overall. So this guy, most definitely a monster as well. And let's keep in mind, it is Zerg versus Zerg, so really anything can happen. Although this is a high skill matchup, usually both of these players are gonna try and feel each other out, at the very least in the first game of the day. And it's actually kind of interesting. We see Serral open up absolutely gasless so far. No gas geyser and going for an extremely quick third base. Of course, these two guys will play quite a lot against each other, so they know fully well what the opponent is capable of here as well. And it looks like Elazer knows that you know, Serral will more than likely be taking a quick expo himself too, so he decided to get that third base up and running. But in the meantime, he did mine 100 gas to get that metabolic boost upgrade going really early on into this match. And we'll see if either of these players is really gonna abuse this opener. Now, Serral did make a spine crawler for a second. Apparently, you know, judging by the timings right here in this game, he has decided to cancel that, and he is just simply gonna build up more queens and a ton of additional workers. It's quite fascinating though how a player can still like get this deep into the StarCraft 2 scene, right? I mean, I hadn't really heard very much about him until players like, for example, Neep, you know, mentioned several times in the past that he was worried about losing like 4-0 against him just recently at the DreamHack tournament, and I don't really want to spoil the results. And of course, you know, Neep is probably the most successful non-Korean player in the last couple of years. I mean, a lot of players in the world have been giving Serral a lot of respect, and usually because, you know, this scene is dominated with professionals that have been playing for years and years and years, and for hours and hours and hours, usually it is a little bit tricky for players to get very deep into a tournament, you know, just because they have got a couple of years of this advantage. However, Elazer is making a lot of Zerglings. He's trying to, at the very least, pressure his opponent a little bit. Now, as you may have already noticed, he is still making drones, so by no stretch of the imagination is he gonna go all in off of this. He's just simply gonna try and pressure his opponent for at least a little bit. Now, of course, by the way, Serral did indeed take the base right here. That is a little easier to defend here on Sequencer LE. There's rocks defending this area, so as long as he can hold on to this ramp, he should be in a pretty solid position. We do see that Roach Warren go down right now at the front as well. No lair or whatever coming in just yet. Of course, no Zergling speed here either. So Serral already, you know, playing extremely greedy here in game number 1, but I actually gotta be honest, I quite like it. I quite like it. Whenever you have to, you know, whenever you have to play a series, I mean, on the ladder, this may not work out very well, but whenever you have to play a series, it can be a great idea to play something this greedy early on, just to try and see if your opponent gets thrown off. Now, so far, Elazer, though, not really having any of those issues just yet. He's getting himself that lair hit now as well, where we do see it go down here on the other end of the map too. And while Serral is only getting the +1 missile, we only do see that single evolution chamber go down here, and actually Elazer now also following it up with the missile upgrade and that roach warren. So far, really like a pretty even game. I mean, most of Zerg vs Zerg can usually be judged by the amount of workers that either player have, and I mean, it's 57 right now in favor of Serral versus 59 here. Well, I guess that would not be in favor anymore, huh, Lowko? He literally made a couple of drones right as I said that. But it's currently 62 workers right here for Elazer, 65 now even. So he's most definitely in a very, very solid state here. I guess that Elazer has read perfectly what exactly is going on right now. He knows very well that Serral took the, you know, easy to take third base, but this is also a base that starts running out of resources very, very quickly. Plus it only has a single gas geyser and 6 mineral patches. So Serral will be in a little bit of trouble here if he does not do any damage here to his opponent very, very shortly. And the thing is, of course, that Elazer, I mean, he has been reading his opponent like a book, following this up with a Spire as well, recognizing that there's a big chance that there will be a roach push coming shortly. However, Serral is not just going to do a regular roach push, but he is bringing the Nidus Worm. I wonder if he's going to bring queens along as well. Judging by the amount of queens that he's producing right now, I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the case. However, beautiful scout here by Elazer, seeing exactly what is going on and what a Nidus Worm is going up right now outside of the natural. He does fully know what's going on, and the queens do get caught here while they were trying to go out on a bit of a sniping mission here, and while that Nidus Worm will shortly finish up, these queens will have to end up paying for that with their lives as well. A couple of them, however, did make it into the worm. They're gonna try and load right now into the natural right here of his opponent. The question is that Spire going to be done in time? Not going to be the case, so that does mean that Elazer will have to hold on here with the army that he's got. A lot of his units, of course, are called across the map here as well. The defender's advantage here, of course, is for Elazer, but it is minimized by the fact that, of course, a lot of the units from Serral can easily make their way across as well, and I gotta be honest, this looks a little bit scary right now for Elazer. So many units from Serral moving across here while he was behind in the economy tab, and he most definitely did not have the money there to go up to his Spire. The Nidus Worm was scouted, but he did not quite figure out here where it was going up, and the first game of this series goes in favor of the Finnish Zerg. Game number 2 is gonna be on Ascension to Aiur LE, spawning in the bottom right. Playing with blue, we have none other than Elazer, and of course his opponent spawning in the top left, we have none other than Serral. Now, so far, of course, this was a pretty typical match of Zerg vs Zerg. Zerg vs Zerg is one of those matchups that is very much so reliant on the map, right? In many of the instances, players are going to try and build up as much economy as they can, or they will get cheesed in the earliest stages of the game. And of course, either of these players can most definitely opt to go for the cheese here as well. I mean, let's be honest, in a lot of the games, Zerg vs Zerg in particular, 13-12 can work out regardless of the map. And while if you do make it to the mid game, we oftentimes do see a switch from roaches into mutas, into hydras, into infestors, into sometimes even lurkers, swarmos, and sometimes hive tech. In many of the games do not quite get it to that point. I mean, usually it's just a little bit too risky. Now, one thing to note, right? Or a little bit too uncommon, I guess, because players would just die in the process. One thing to note is that both of these players have got the micro to easily go for a hatchery first and not really lose too many games to 13-12. The reason why you don't really see these super quick Zerging speed upgrades in Zerg vs Zerg at this level of play, at the very least usually, right? It may still come into play in this series as well, is just because these guys know very well how to counter you know, speed links as well as bane links from their opponent with just drones and slow Zerglings and a queen or two. And you know, just the micro that they have will allow them to still open up with a hatchery first in almost all of the games comfortably. Now, if you are playing Zerg on the ladder, however, and you are noticing that you die a lot to early game pressure, definitely don't be against going for like a pool into a hatchery into a gas, or, you know, even a gas pool into a hatchery, something along those lines. Totally viable as well, unless you feel really confident in your micro and you know that your opponent is more than likely not gonna cheese you at the very least every single game. Going hatch first is of course an option as well. Interesting little bit of a scouting pattern right here by Serral, actually. I like checking out these little kind of things, I guess, but I'm assuming here he does that to prevent his opponent. Like, there's a chance, right, if Elazer would have gone here for a super early pull, that the Overlord would catch the Zerglings if they would try and dodge the first one here that's moving across. Actually pretty smart here as well, because otherwise they would most definitely pass by this Overlord. Regardless though, none of that is happening in this game, and both players are really just getting themselves that Zergling speed. We now also do see queens going out for both of them, and more drones are being added on. Looks like we're setting up for a standard macro kind of game right now in Zerg vs Zerg. But of course, at any moment during this match, and I don't know if Elazer saw that right there, but at any moment in this game, both of these players can switch out into a massive amount of links as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if indeed we do see the Baneling Nest go down here on both sides, and very shortly a third here for both of these players. I mean, if there's a sport called synchronized droning or something, I mean, this is pretty much as perfect as it gets, right? I mean, hatchery. I would be okay with an Olympic sport called synchronized droning. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Usually you can cast most of the early game Zerg vs Zerg just from the mini map alone. Regardless though, Elazer did now get across the map here with 2 Zerglings. He's going to be able to indeed confirm that the third base is down, although I'm assuming he already knows about that with this Overlord. He's going to be able to figure out exactly what's going on. A couple of Zerglings now actually hanging out here in the bottom left corner. I think that they may very well be waiting here for Elazer's links to move out and potentially try and snipe oh no, hold that thought. I was gonna say potentially try and snipe a queen as well, but Serral is planning to get awfully aggressive right here. He's morphing in a ton of Banes. He's running all of the Zerglings that he just created across the map as well. And the question is Elazer gonna catch on to this? It looks like so far he is. Judging by the supply count right there, you can notice as well as by the production tab, of course, that he is making a ton of army. Gotta be very careful though, because of course these Banelings are gonna try and connect with all of these units. Professional players doing the Ling Bane micro. I mean, it can get very messy very quickly, but usually the player that is playing defensive should be in a pretty decent position. But of course, this can easily get messed up here in just a matter of seconds. Both players trying to go after those low HP Banelings, trying to snipe whatever they can. That hatchery, though, is running awfully low here. And while the queens are being brought over, I wonder if there's actually enough right now. Oh man, Transfuse is going down. I wonder if there is going to be enough here to hold on. No, that base will indeed end up falling. And while Serral is heavily behind right now in the supply count, he must feel pretty confident here because he got himself that third base up. He's getting a queen right there as well. And as long as he manages to defend against the imminent counterattack, he's going to be in a perfect state at this point in the game. 33 workers here for both of these players. But of course, the fact that there is a third right now for Serral does make this quite a bit, of an advantage for him right now. And that's what I'm talking about, right? I mean, ZVZ, it's a slippery slope. Oftentimes the games are decided by either cheese or the amount of drones here, but it still comes down to a lot of control here from either end as well. I was wondering if it wasn't a little bit too greedy there from Serral to target fire down the hatchery, but apparently he just barely managed to kill that right there in the nick of time, and it will give him just a slight upper hand, at the very least for the time being. Now, of course, Elazer, though, he still does have a very solid amount of economy here as well. Of course, you gotta make sure that you saturate those 3 bases as well. And while these Zerglings are currently skirmishing across the map and are doing a little bit of damage here and there, Elazer is not planning to get too aggressive right here. He's just simply trying to pressure here for just a bit, see if he can do a bit of damage. But mostly, he's just spending his time droning up right now. And even though that third base fell, he is still ahead when it comes to the worker count. I mean, it's rather impressive here as well. Also, he got a full scout off right there of the main base of his opponent, knows fully well that there is going to be a lair. A couple of Zerglings do end up falling right there to a Baneling, but all things considered, this is going to be a pretty even engagement here for both of these players. I mean, you can see that, of course, right now, Elazer will once again be forced to make a couple of links, but slowly, both of these players are really building up their economy, and that's usually the point at which you can start switching into something that is, for example, roaches or mutas or anything along those lines. Now, roaches are being queued up right now as well. I'm actually a little bit worried here, but there are plenty of defenses, it turns out, to go ahead and shoo away here, these Zerglings here from the player in red. And while more and more units are now joining this engagement, maybe a queen will end up falling, Transfuse goes down during the nick of time, the roaches will shortly come out, and I highly doubt that any of the drones here will really start falling. And really, like, once again, right, it's all a game of drones. If you manage to keep ahead here in the economy count, you're going to be in a great position. Now, roaches are currently moving across, Zerglings are trying to sneak by here as well, and while maybe 1 or 2 will end up getting killed, the question is there enough right now for the player in red to overpower his opponent? Glider Constitution is now started here for Elazer, which is of course the roach speed upgrade. He's just about to finish up +1 missile as well. No such thing available just yet for Serral, and it makes a huge difference here, whether or not you get the upgrades down. And here we go, both players are going to try and do whatever damage they can. +1 attack is done, and I think that Elazer has beautifully, at the very least for now, right, deflected the first bit of aggression. 2 spine crawlers are now also going down. There will be a corrosive bile landing here as well. Both players, though, just trying to make as many units as they can, and Serral, somehow, some way, is really squeezing out a ton of army here. 3 spine crawlers in total, though. That should be a pretty decent amount to, at the very least, hold on to this third base, I think. But still, there are a lot of roaches here available. Low HP roaches now also being morphed into Ravagers, so they get back at that full health count. And actually, I think that Serral may have very well just barely broken his opponent. I mean, he all of a sudden whipped out so many units, brilliantly reading the amount of workers available for his opponent. And even though he was behind there, economically speaking, he has started making a ton of stuff. And indeed, Serral, I mean, with a very strange kind of timing attack right there, right? I mean, if he returned to the game for just a little bit, he had no roach speed here whatsoever. He did go for a lair, but I guess he ended up canceling that. And while, I mean, he was getting an evolution chamber here eventually, this was sort of like an all-in, I guess. It was more or less an all-in. I mean, at this point in the game, he had no upgrades, he had no lair, he had a whole lot of nothing, but he still managed to read his opponent like a book. And I think that after Elazer got that scout off into the main base, and Elazer read what his opponent was doing, I think that must have been a point where Serral decided, hey, he is gonna make the assumption I'm gonna push in like 2 minutes from now. What if I just cancel my lair and push out, you know, a minute from now instead? He's probably gonna be caught with his pants down, and it turns out that that is indeed true. Very cool play right there by Serral. There we have it, match point right now for Serral, spawning in the top left corner of Blood Boil Alley. We have none other than Elazer, and actually, ooh, he is canceling that worker, so we all know what is gonna happen right here. He's gonna go for an awfully early spawning pool right at the 12 supply count, and his opponent spawning in a cross position and playing in red, opening up with a hatchery first every single match so far. We have none other than Serral, and this is a little risky, of course, right now by Elazer, by the way. I mean, Elazer is gonna be in, you know, he's gonna be in a little bit of trouble if he does not manage to kill his opponent flat out. This is gonna get messy really very quickly. So he is following this up with a couple of drones, but I wouldn't be surprised here if Elazer is, yeah, he's just gonna try and do as much damage as he can. He's just gonna try and you know, close out this game really early on. So he's getting himself that Overlord now as well, but I think that shortly he's gonna start flooding the map with a whole lot of slow Zerglings. Bit of an interesting build though, to be honest. I mean, what exactly are you gonna do? I think he's gonna build a queen and then like non-stop Zerglings or something along those lines. I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the case. Regardless though, Serral this time around not opening up with a hatchery first, and instead he's gonna go for the gold base. He's gone for a quick gas geyser into a spawning pool, and then he's expanding towards the gold here. And this gold, of course, on a Blood Boil is extremely valuable. 8 mineral patches right here, as well as double gas. I mean, this base mines for about as much as 2 entire, you know, 2 entire blue mineral patch bases will. And while apparently Elazer is following this up with a hatchery rather than a queen, he is still going to be flooding the map with as many of the Zerglings as he possibly can. Queens are going down right now as well for Serral, and he's going to try and add on that Baneling Nest upon scouting that Lings are already moving across. The question is he going to have enough here? I think that Elazer will likely just simply kill this base. I was going to say, is he going to run by? That would be very surprising. No, he's just going to go ahead and kill that base. And of course, if he manages to do exactly that, he's going to be in a rather nice position here, actually. Very greedy play, of course, by Serral, but he's 2-0 ahead. He can take a bit of a risk like that. If Serral, of course, is going to go up against a gasless Zerg as well, but he doesn't know about that at this point in time. And I guess that this may very well trigger Serral to expand towards the back base here instead, or maybe even forward once he figures out that indeed there is no Zergling speed on their way. And actually, of course, you got to keep in mind, there is very little tech here available for the player in blue. He's going to try and do whatever damage he can with the units that he's got right now. Beautiful positioning here on that queen, and the building placement right there on that spine and Baneling Nest are absolutely spot on. The same can be said for that Morphin position right there for those Banelings, as well as the spine crawler. I mean, minimal losses so far here for Serral, and even he feels so confident that he just simply cancels that spine crawler upon recognizing as well that this is not a Ling speed push. I think he may just very well consider taking a gold once again. Is he just gonna go for the... Oh man, I love it. That is so cheeky. I mean, he's recognized his opponent's build. He knows that he's going to be behind, economically speaking, right now. May as well try and catch it back up right now by taking that gold base once again. Now, what exactly is gonna happen here for Elazer? He's following this up with 3 queens. or actually 4 queens here in total. 2 were already out. That is a little bit cheeky. I wonder if he's planning to get really aggressive from here on out. Of course, he knows that he's going to be up against Zerglings with speed as well as a Baneling nest very shortly, as he did see the wiggle right there in that spawning pool, plus the continued mining of gas. So of course a couple of links are gonna try and make their way inside of the base just to be a a bit of a nuisance. They may get a drone if they are very, very lucky, but very shortly of course the new queen in the main will also come out, and I highly doubt that really any damage will get dealt here by the Zerglings, but they will scout out exactly what's going on. Elazer right now only figuring out that he's gonna need that gas. Yeah, he's only just now really starting up the gas count, and it's gonna get a little bit risky here. Serral, is he planning to transfer any drones? I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like he's gonna plan on going for a really aggressive push. So you gotta keep in mind, Elazer right now, 33 workers versus only 20. This is essentially an all-in right now for Serral. He is making non-stop Zerglings. He's made that gold base, so he's gonna get some additional resources, of course, because these drones will start returning 7 minerals a trip rather than 5. But little moves like that do give a nice little lead here to Elazer. If he manages to snipe this Overlord as well, that would be a game changer, actually. This is gonna supply block, or actually it just barely did not supply block Serral right there, but it's gonna be a big deal, as, if you're planning to go for an all-in, every single mineral counts, and the mineral transfer, the drone transfer right there is gonna be a big deal, and this is gonna be a mass Zergling Baneling push. But is it going to be enough? Look at this brilliant defense here by Elazer, figuring out exactly what his opponent is going for. He's starting up his roach production right now as well, and while that spine, or actually it's a spore crawler even, is taking a bunch of damage, these Zerglings are not gonna go anywhere. Roaches are coming out, and GG is cold. A brilliant game right there by Elazer. The next match is gonna be on Abyssal Reef LE, easily one of the most macro-focused maps in StarCraft 2. Of course, the natural is easy to take, so is the third base. For the fourth, however, you can choose whichever one you like. You can take the one over here, which is the most common. You can even take the one down here as well. For example, if you're playing Terran Mech, if you're playing Mutas. As Zerg, oftentimes players will opt for the base right here on the left-hand side instead, because it's much more difficult for their opponent to attack into, and it's really far apart. And usually, this map will really allow, either of the players to go for a macro kind of game. Well, if they decide to do so, right? It is going to be a Zerg versus Zerg, but so far, judging by the production tab, there doesn't seem to be any kind of super early game aggression coming out just yet. Anyway, spawning in the top left corner, currently 2-1 behind, so he's got to be a little bit careful. We have none other than Elazer. And his opponent spawning in a cross position, he only needs to win one more. We have none other than Serral. And actually, both of the players are indeed going for that hatchery first right here. Now, my only issue with this map, and I don't know if I am the only one, I've complained it several times on stream, or I've complained about it rather several times on stream before, and I mentioned it in a YouTube video as well. I seem to be one of the few that actually has this issue on this map. I personally can't really see my units very well. As far as I know, I got I got perfect sharp vision, I know that much. As far as I know, I'm not like colorblind or anything, but I may have like, I don't know. I have a very hard time following the units around. I find it difficult to see, for example, the red right now, which is a little bit strange, even though it's not very contrasted, I guess, to the creep. It shouldn't be that big of an issue. But I always feel like I'm not paying very close attention to what is going on, and I usually overestimate the engagements or underestimate the army that I've got. I don't really know exactly if it's true, but it has to do with like the dark nature on this map. I've tried meddling around with the colors and the team intensity colors and all those kinds of things, but for the most part, I've been downvoting this map just because of that reason. And actually, I know that in a lot of the professional matches, and I don't actually know if that's the case for this one as well, considering we're playing on the LE version. I highly doubt that is going to be the case, but I know in a lot of the professional games, tournament organizers will opt for a less dark version of this map, just because it makes it easier to see what's going on. But considering this is the latter edition, the LE version of the map, I highly doubt that is going to be the case. Regardless though, both players indeed pulling 2 drones out of the gas geyser here at 100. That does indicate that they're more than likely going to try and go for a quick third base. Drone moving across right here, going for that Olympic sport of synchronized droning. Hatchery going down. hatchery going down. Brilliant. Zerglings did move here to the right-hand side of the map, actually, for both parties. They're trying to see whatever damage they can. A couple of links trying to make their way across here as well on the left-hand side. Just trying to see whatever damage they can do, I guess, and trying to scout out what their opponent is going for. But so far, Serral is having none of it. He's finding all of these links by sending his overlords in seemingly awkward positions. But of course, he knows very well that, you know, there's sort of like, in Zerg vs. Zerg, and it's kind of funny, there's sort of like an overlord placement meta as well. So while there's a lot of different build orders and strategies and whatnot happening, when a map is around for a long time, like for example this one, it's been like, I think this is the second season. It may be the third one. I'm not entirely sure. But this map, players have got a lot of experience on it. Usually, initially, when a map goes out, the first overlord goes straight across to the natural. Second overlord goes straight towards that third base as well. But after a little while, players will figure out exactly what's going on. And they will start, you know, knowing exactly where their opponent will likely be sending overlords as well. So they're going to try and dodge the links, you know, potentially from getting in there. Zergling's just barely nibbling that queen to death. And while there are a couple of links now on the other side of the map as well, I think that Elazer will not be able to pick up too many worker kills right here. Actually, only a single one going down in the entirety of this game, but a ton more links are coming in. There's a bunch of drones now being produced here as well for Serral. He's got to be very, very careful. Of course, neither of these players, as far as I know, have currently got a Baneling's Nest, which is definitely a bit greedy. Roach Warrens are going down right now, as well as an Evolution Chamber for the player in blue. But, I mean, yeah, once again, we get that weird Zergling aggression, or the Zergling versus Zergling aggression, and neither of these players really focusing heavily on the Baneling kind of style. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. Most of the professional players do still opt for the classic, like, Zergling speed first, into the Baneling Nest second. Now, while both of these guys are making tons of Zerglings in this series, I mean, I've seen very, very little Baneling play here in general. Very, very curious move there. And I actually gotta say, I really like it. If you're confident enough in your Zergling micro, you don't really need the Banelings to defend against the imminent aggression. And look at that. +1 attack now also being produced for Elazer. He is planning to not just only, you know, go really Zergling heavy, but he's gonna try and close out the game, or at the very least, do a substantial amount of damage. Now, it does get scouted right now. Of course, it does mean that Serral will scout as well, that there's no lair going down, nor does he see a Roach Warren anywhere. Plus, there's a ton of links out already. I wonder if this will still trigger him to go for that quick, oh man, he's actually not building a Baneling Nest at all. He's just simply gonna build a wall instead. I like it, actually. That's really cool. He's just simply gonna wall off right here at the top of the ramp, making like a semi-wall here at the natural as well, trying to do whatever damage he can. And while that Spine Crawler will end up getting cancelled and he may end up losing that third, he's most definitely not gonna take, you know, crippling amounts of damage at this point in the game. Zerglings, though, trying to get whatever service area they can. Queens are transfusing all of the roaches here that are meant for the defense, and the drones are, I mean, oh man, that defense was spot on. That was brilliant. The drones even mineral walked right there, and while 3 workers ended up going down there, Serral did really not miss a beat at all. I mean, +1 attack was not done just yet. Elazer knew that he was scouted, so he had to try something. That was spot on. That was a brilliant defense. I love that little semi-wall. I thought for a second he might be sacrificing the third. It wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. He just held onto that base like a... Man, that was really great defense. That's so difficult to make up, right? And these Zerglings, I mean, they keep coming in. That's one of the things and one of the patterns I've been seeing a lot in Serral's play. He always finds a way to harass his opponent. Even versus Protoss, he drops Zerglings super late on into the game. And once again, he's running links all over this map. And so far, he seems to be in dominant control here of this match so far. Zerglings trying to make their way towards the third. They will get caught here as well. And while there is a scouting here, or there is some scouting here from Elazer as well. And of course, these links have got +1 attack, so Serral needs to be a little bit careful. No, these links will have to pay for that with their lives, I'm pretty sure, or at least the majority of them will. Serral's not really missing a beat. He's getting himself that lair up right now as well. That means that he will be able to get this Glial Reconstitution going here in the Roach War and the Roach Speed upgrade shortly as well. And once that finishes, I mean, he's in a position to go ahead and move across the map much more confidently. And once again, right, he's not... There we go, by the way. He's not like putting all of his units in one big ball. Usually he's always splitting them up, right? Notice right there, this is a sign of like a lot of super high level play. They never really put their units in one big clump, and they always spread them out between the different bases upon seeing where the opponent's movement is going to be at. Regardless though, Elazer is most definitely not out of this game by any stretch of the imagination. And as a matter of fact, he's even ahead right now when it comes to the economy. He's getting himself that 4th base. He's got a nice amount of workers, a slight upper hand actually as well, and he's making more drones here too. He's now going for that 2nd evolution evolution chamber, or the second evolution chamber rather. I actually really like that move. It does indicate that he's more than likely gonna play a little more defensively, and while Zerglings are once again moving in here, and it looks like Serral is gonna end up scouting about here with an overseer. He may very well end up finding a second evo chamber here shortly as well. Serral is I mean, he's looking dominant here, but Elazer is once again in a very nice position. While his early game pressure really didn't do a whole lot, and that defense was spot on here from the player in red, Elazer has crawled himself back into this point where he's once again ahead here in the supply counts, but he's also looking in a very solid economical state here, where he's ahead on that fort base timing, plus he's getting himself, you know, the 1-1 upgrades here as well. Now, surprisingly, in this match, it's going to be Serral that's going for the switch into the Mutalisk. I actually quite like that as well. I mean, he's made a handful of Ravagers, but for the most part, he's been saving up a lot of gas here for a while already. Judging by the fact that he's going for the +2 missile, he's probably just going to make one big batch of Mutas to sort of like try and contain his opponent and potentially like counterattack here. Because, I mean, he's gonna force like anti-air and hydras and whatnot out of his opponent, at which point, of course, Elazer is gonna be a bit vulnerable. Regardless though, Nemetized Carapace will finish up right here for Elazer. Hopefully he will end up scouting this spire before the Mutas enter the map. We now also do see Tunneling Claws going down, so Elazer actually going for a very heavy like ground-based army here, which most definitely should work out quite well. He just needs to know about the spire. He just really desperately needs to know about this spire before like 20 Mutas can be saved up. Immediately 8 are on the production tab right now as well. Changeling trying to make his way in, but I highly doubt that this will go unscouted. Of course, it does mean that the Zerg player in red has to pay very close attention. He's going to be capable of figuring out exactly what's going on. Actually, that cheeky little Zergling will be able to hang out here for a little while longer. While one of his brothers apparently ended up falling, and the drone killed it as well, it did keep close track of exactly what is going on here. Same can be said though on the other end of the map. Elazer even building up that spine crawler. He's getting the spores already. Hold up. What a man! Look at that! He's getting the spore crawlers and whatnot here, primarily blindly, but this must be... I mean, he may have just barely spotted the Mutas in some way or something. I'm not entirely sure. It felt like this Warden Spore, at the very least, was made before any kind of Muta play was detected. But I guess it must have been because he knows very well what his opponent is capable of. And so far, these Mutas have done very, very little. Sure, they may end up killing an Overlord or two. And sure, they may end up slowing down the Zerg here for a little while. But already, Infestors are on the production tab. Zerglings are once again making their way across the map here as well. But Hydras are shortly going to join this army as well. And Elazer has shut down the Muta play with absolute ease, not really making any mistakes in that regard. Now Serral switching it up right now by going for a Hydra Den himself. I like that a lot, actually. Going for the Roach into Muta play, or actually more or less like the Zergling into Roach into Muta into like Lurker play. It's actually kind of fascinating. He's now also building up that infestation pit, so this may be indicative that he's planning to go for a hive here in a little bit as well. And while a couple of Mutas will end up falling here and there, I mean, I don't think that this is going to do all too much. There's a pretty healthy amount of infestors here, actually 7 workers. I mean, that's decent. He's been harassing here, but of course at this level of play, I mean, both of these players recognize that these Mutas are everything but game ending. These 7 drones can easily be replaced, and more and more spines will even go down right now. I like it a lot. We now also do see the hive go down for Elazer, so actually both of these players look like they may very well be planning to go for some very late game play, and this is like unexplored terrain for a lot of like high level Zerg players as well. I mean, they'll have more experience than myself playing these kind of games, but I mean, oh, that was cheeky. Serral trying to go for that burrow right there, hoping that his opponent was going to try and run by. Regardless, though, this is like mostly unexplored terrain, even at the highest level of play, because Zerg versus Zerg usually doesn't go to that point. Now, it looks like both of these guys, though, do have a proper understanding of what's going on. We do see that Hydra is then almost done here, morphing into a Lurker Den. A bunch of Roaches actually do end up falling there, but they're immediately replaced right now by Hydralisk, so I'm assuming here that that was indeed on purpose. But both players actually just mostly sitting back here. Muta still, of course, flying about, trying to keep track here on any like hidden expansions or anything along those lines. But the hive is done. And I think that Elazer is going to initially just use this for upgrades. Yeah, exactly. He's going to just build up more and more spines. But of course, this does give him the option to go for Ultralists, to go for Brute Lords, to go for a whole lot of this Hive tech here as well. But so far, only just really focus on upgrades here for the time being, which, to be fair, are very important in Zerg versus Zerg here as well. And he's really focusing on like a Roach Ravager Hydra. Wow, he's killing some of his own roaches. I guess he really wants to get some more high tech as well. He's actually building Vipers. Oh! Okay, I was wondering why he was killing his own roaches right there. That's actually really smart. Freeing up some supply right there to get some of these Vipers out. Of course, Vipers will be able to use their Blinding Cloud against all of the... oh, actually, apparently it was a bit of a pulse right there in the game. They will be able to use Blinding Cloud on top of all of the Lurkers. And while the Lurkers are currently moving across the map... I wonder if those... I mean, they will come out. They're out right now. As long as they get energy, these Lurkers can absolutely be nullified. Now, Elazer has got a big chunk of his army here on the right-hand side. There's also a big chunk of army actually left over back at home for Serral just to try and defend here. A bunch of roaches now also moving here into the third base, and some of them even look like they're going to try and shade into the natural instead. Nothing really being done here whatsoever, though, but at the same time, this does allow the remainder of the Roach Ravager force here to move onwards towards this 5th base location. The Lurkers are burrowed, and they are most definitely shown right now. Players are just trying to do whatever damage they can. So many infestors going down, though. Roaches now also trying to make their way towards that third base, but I highly doubt they're going to be able to do anything. Vipers will be able to land their Blinding Clouds on top of the majority right there of the Lurkers, but still, the Blinding Clouds don't last forever. So much damage is being done. These Lurkers do so much against armored units, and even though the perfect counter right there was available, Elazer is forced to defend at so many locations at once. These infestors were not really used there in the main engagement either, that all of a sudden, even though Elazer had the perfect composition there, he still ended up losing way more than he was originally intending to. So much stuff. All of a sudden, moving across. These Mutas, of course, still left over from previous engagements. They may even be able to go after, you know, these Vipers shortly as well if he's not careful. Of course, trying to leapfrog these Lurkers forward right now as well. Trying to spread them out as much as possible using the Yanks, though. Picking off each individual one of these Lurkers absolutely brilliantly. But Blinding Cloud is going to have a hard time covering all of these units. Beautiful Fungal going down, though. Landing those Corrosive Biles as a follow-up as well. Elazer definitely behind in the supply count right here, but he is making the best of the army that he's got. But right now, the Zerg player in red is reinforcing with an awful lot of units. More and more are crossing the map right now as well. And while this is a bit of a massacre, I can't help but think that Serral has managed to break his opponent, and indeed, he will be able to finish up this series with a 3-2-1 advantage. Beautiful game here. Absolutely gorgeous. I love that. That was sick. That was a really, really awesome series. I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. If you didn't already, though, make sure that you hit that like button down below, but more importantly, make sure you subscribe so you get a notification as soon as the next series goes live on YouTube as well. Other than that, I want to thank you very much so for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.